Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you wherever you are, because it is for December 29th, 2023. My name is Bertie Burns. With me, I can't believe people haven't figured out she's AI generated. Ashley, how you doing?
Yeah, it's okay. I'm working on the newest version of OpenAI.
You're running on OpenAI.
So when you see me just staring into the distance, it's because I'm rebooting with a new version.
Welcome to the year in review.
Been a whole year. Whole year. How have you felt about this year?
It went
in
really
podcast?
fast, I feel like. Our first year of podcasting.
Zoomed by. Feels like no time at all.
Just feels like a few days. Welcome to the year in review for now the number 2 podcast.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Right behind Joe Rogan, which is now the official beta male spot for all of entertainment.
You're my favorite beta.
Quite the juggernaut at number 1 up there, especially on Spotify. It's,
as far as I'm concerned, number 2 is number 1.
Oh, I like the way you think. That's girl math.
That is girl math.
That's what we're talking about the year in review, and one of the things I fell in love with in 2023 was girl math. I am a huge believer in girl math.
Look, here's the thing, though. We call it girl math. Boys have a version, and I've heard you talk about it before, and it's tool math.
It all has different names. This goes back to, I remember one time I was into this like meal replacement, like Soylent and 100% food. This was about 6 or 7 years ago. It was all the rage on podcasts and people talking about it where you just drink the thing and that's it. And somebody tweeted they were talking about it to their mom, this new thing. And she says, they invented Slim Fast? We've had that since the 70s. And the girl was like, yeah, but it's guys, so they call it tech. But girl math is, if you're not familiar with the concept, it was a funny trend in social media where ladies were justifying usually purchases of saying, if I buy this $500 dress, I'm just using round numbers here, but I wear it 10 times.
Then really it's only $50 per time. And that's actually super reasonable, right?
And if I wear it 20 times, then it drops down to half of that, to 25. And if I wear it, that's it. I could do that within a month, wear it 20 times. And then they would justify wearing it so many times or using it so many times that eventually it's free. I love that.
Or if you buy something and then you return that something and get something else, that something else is free.
I don't know how I feel about that, but that is what guys would call buy it for life. They use the same thing, like they want to buy the Craftsman tool with the lifetime warranty or whatever. We're a great example of that. 2 things that we did when we moved over. Oh my God, we're already off on tangents from our year in the review. 2 things we did when we moved over here. I splurged on 2 things. One was I got us a nice coffee machine. I'm going to say money number here. I bought us a $500 espresso coffee machine for our kitchen.
I want to be clear, not an espresso maker, because I feel like those are their own very specific and often like, the super expensive with the tamping or whatever and the milk frother. It wasn't one of those. It's a coffee machine. It's a cappuccino maker.
It's a little cappuccino maker. It's DeLonghi something, a Lada or something like that.
Yeah.
One of the best things about it is it has statistics on it. And over the course of now the 4 years that we've been here, we have made 7,200 coffees in this thing. It'll tell us how many we've made.
That's an amazing amount of coffee, by the way.
It's a phenomenal amount. I'll do it. Well, that should be the thumbnail.
Coffee math.
Thumbnail for the review. But I think about it every time. Every time we use it, it goes down in price. It does. It goes down in price every time we use it. That's good math. I like that. The other thing I did to splurge, just to finish the thought, was I'm so happy as an adult male, I have all my tools match. I just had to redo my tools, mainly because of power settings moving over here. And so I have I'm going to really alienate a lot of guys here. I have all Makita tools.
No, you gotta get Makita. Gotta get DeWalt.
See, guys, that's why I'm in the beta male spot. That's why I'll never crack number 1. But it's so nice after all these years to have that. Although I kind of worried Ashley because our 4-year-old has a John Deere little ride-on tractor, a little Power Wheels thing that he rides around on. And it comes with its own 12-volt battery that you have to charge, and it's a pain in the ass. So I swapped it out.
This was something you saw on Instagram, I'm pretty sure, wasn't it?
I saw it a couple different places, but I swapped it out to where it'll take my Makita batteries, which are 18 volt. So now when he gets on it and hits the accelerator, it just like pops a wheelie.
and he goes, the other day he stopped riding out to go, should there be a seatbelt on this thing? So thanks for that.
I do want to say too, I had a great night last night. Last night was me and the 4-year-olds boys night at the pub. And we had a great time. It was, we went out to the pub. He gets dressed up in his blazer and his button down, and we go have a nice night together at the pub. And he learns all about etiquette because you have to train kids in restaurants. If you've had kids or you're going to have kids, just know that they're just like, there's a period of time when you go to a restaurant and they're just a nightmare in a restaurant. I don't know why that is.
It's hell on everybody. You want to say like, why don't we go out for a nice meal, treat ourselves? Because all we do is eat at home for years.
Yeah.
And so you go down to the pub and then you immediately regret it.
And they're flopping all over the place and getting under the table and just, it's a nightmare. But this is the training regimen that I've got him in to get him to be a good pub goer and a polite kid. He's doing great.
Well, and it's nice too, because we one of the things that we took up when we came here is we got the local. We've got our local pub.
Yeah.
We have a local where we know the guys behind the bar. We know we say hi to them when we see them on the street. And that's not something that I ever had before. It's amazing. I love it.
We should also probably explain, I'm not taking my kid to the bar. That's what that sounds like from America.
It does sound like that. But the pub is like, it's the restaurant, with a bar in it.
We're in Scotland. It's like the community center.
It really is.
Yeah. It's kind of like the pub culture in Scotland is not like a bar. That's how you think about it in America. It's more almost like coffee shop / restaurant / bar, like all together.
Yeah, it's where people go.
Right. Some people just come to hang out and they're tapping away on their laptop like you'd see at Starbucks. Some people are having a whiskey at the bar, whiskey without an E. And then some people are having like family dinner or stuff like that. And our little one, who we adore, and all we do all day is talk about how gorgeous she is and how much we love her. Perfect baby. We took her on a plane and
that did not go well. That did not go well at all. If we have to travel for this podcast, it's going to be real tough. I'm going to be mad.
Just know if you're child free and all that, and you're looking down your nose at this conversation, just know that if you hear a crying baby on a plane or in a public place, no one is having a worse time than those parents. Nobody.
We're in absolute hell too.
It's international flight, London to Austin. That is a 9-hour flight of raw hell. And you just think, how have you not passed out from being this upset? You wonderful little being. How have you not passed out? Okay, your review, Ashley. We should probably get to that. We did girl math. Girl math was on my list.
How far are we into our 15
Boys
night
night
podcast?
At the pub.
So it's been a whole year. It's been a year of 2023. It's funny because maybe my brain is completely broken by parenthood or retirement or something. But I feel like I don't know what happened the early part of this year.
That's the way this works, man. That's the way all this works.
I know a couple things. I know there was the craziness with the OpenAI week, that took place over the course of a week where
that was pretty recent.
The CEO got ousted and then all the employees revolted and the president quit in solidarity with him. And then the president's wife went and cried to another board member and they got him reinstated and then kicked the existing board out. Now Microsoft is on the board and it was this whole thing.
Microsoft came out looking like a saint in that whole thing.
They definitely saved their $13 billion investment. So
the
it's
CEO
not without self-interest.
Was ousted. Microsoft hired him and then he went back to OpenAI.
And Microsoft was like,
days
yes,
later,
please go free, little bird. Yeah, but it is funny that after that all happened, everyone was like, yeah, Altman's back in. Yeah, everything's great. And then people start asking questions and it's been, they have more time than like the week of heavy drama and they're going, wait a minute. Well, maybe he did have some questionable things going on. Because I think some of the issues revolved around investments that he was making with OpenAI regarding other companies or other assets that he controlled, something like that. And then it turns out also that he has a history of failing upwards. We
were looking at that article. You showed it to me, or maybe JD showed it to me, where it was 3 different times he's been ousted by leadership and then somehow been resurrected and came back better than ever.
Yeah, and I'll put that in the link dump, by the way. Oh, I guess we should go over the link dump. For those who aren't familiar with a link dump for podcasts is on our website, morningsandwork.com. We every day, every entry will put a post up for it. And we put all the links that we feel are relevant because we don't, in a 15-minute podcast, have time to go into a lot of depth on a lot of these things. And also, guess what? We're not experts on everything. We're experts on our
Speak for yourself.
Experts on a coffee machine for sure, 7,200 coffees. But on things like acquisitions and mergers, maybe not quite so much. So we will just link to the experts.
It might be
for
6,200 coffees. I'll have to check. We'll have to post a photo of it. We'll find out.
You don't even know your own coffee maker?
That'll be in the link dump.
We'll put it in the link dump. Or tell you what, we'll post a picture of it on Instagram. It'll be this sexy, because pictures are kind of hard to put up. So those I've been mostly putting on Instagram, like your snapshot yesterday of your United States versus metric units. I put that on Instagram because it's actually kind of tough to put in.
All of our social media is at Morning Somewhere everywhere, except for Twitter, which we're not on.
Right.
We have our personal accounts.
We have an account there, but we've decided not to use it.
And that was one of your big things also for 2023, was you were heavily into the slow decline and steady demise of Twitter. I don't know if you say demise. It's so easy to look at.
Yeah, demise isn't the right word because it is still used by a ton of people. It's still very important platform, but it's not what it was.
In a tarot deck, the death card is not death. It is change. So something theoretically could change so much, it's essentially dead to you the way it was, and I think a lot of people would look at Twitter and say that. I mean, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. For one, it's got a different name now. They called it X. That rebrand did happen this year. So yeah, year in review.
I learned also in that whole thing, I'm love internet history. I learned that there were only 1-letter domain names ever issued, and X goes all the way back to, he had it since like 1990. And
really?
Yeah, there was only 3. You can continue talking about Twitter, and I'll look up the actual stat on that.
Okay, yeah, it's been kind of a crazy year. I feel like to see the advertisers. Although advertisers are weird with something like that, where something will happen, Musk will make a tweet, and then all the advertisers bail, and then they just once the smoke clears, then they quietly come back. But I feel like it's a little bit like that guy who used to, appropriately enough, tweet about football and how excited he was for football to come back so we could boycott it again. Mm-hmm. And I feel like advertisers are a little bit like that. They keep coming back, and then something will happen and they'll boycott and then eventually come back. So it's, I don't know, it's weird, but it's definitely sounds like they're losing billions and billions in advertising dollars. The user base has changed a great deal. I almost never use it. And there was a time when I thought I couldn't go a day without checking Twitter.
Right. I'm with you. And it was shocking to me how a lot of times I equate the whole we're not using social media to when I was younger, people say, oh, I don't have a television, in my house, and I don't watch television. But I was actually shocked where social media is a strange thing. The more you use it, the more you use it. And the less you use it, the less you use it. I don't know how else to describe that.
It's just, like you cycle upward in either direction.
Right. It compounds on itself, where you're just like, I'm checking this less, and then I realize I hadn't even looked at Twitter in months. I didn't even know if it was on my phone or not anymore.
So would you say it's compounded interest?
I have a symbol on my soundboard here. Our whopping, all of our equipment investment that we've got for our $700 we spent on Amazon. For every podcast that we make, this goes down in price.
Well, all right. Well, we'll keep it going a little bit longer.
Welcome to the Girl Math Podcast. Can I follow up real quickly?
Yes, please do.
Well, you seem like you're between thoughts there, if I may. Going back to what I said, I breathed right in the mic. The 3 one-letter.com domains that were ever issued were Q.com to Lumen Technologies, X.com to X Corp. That was not, Musk's name is not listed here. 1993 owners are Marcel De Paolis and Dave Weinstein. And then Z.com, which was homepage.com. That's whoever registered both those things was really thinking ahead, from GMO Internet Incorporated. Those were the only ever single letter domain names that were ever issued.
That's pretty wild to me.
So with Twitter, you were showing me an article that was by The Guardian, which was the 13 tweets over 2023 that show the decline of Twitter.
Yeah, and it's it really starts with October last year when he closed on Twitter, finalized his thing, and then walked in with the kitchen sink. That was sort of like tweet number one.
As a reminder,
like, this is
he
where
tried to get out of it, and they sued him to make him take the deal.
It was the weirdest thing that he was like, I'm going to acquire them. And then they did something called the poison pill to try to make it so that he couldn't. And then he bought a bunch of stock, became the majority stockholder, said he was going to buy it for this price, and then was like, no, I don't want to do it anymore because bots. And they were like, no, now you have to. I don't understand. And you know what? I'm actually kind of happy not understanding all of it.
That's why we have the link dump. But yesterday I mentioned Elon Musk and didn't finish a thought about it, where I was saying he was one of the people ringing the alarm bell about population collapse. And we moved on to something else. But I was going to say, he's at a point now where I feel like he's a really, really smart person and is very forward thinking when it comes like SpaceX and EVs and energy and things like that, and bought a company that clearly owned X.com, even just as a small example. But I don't think that he can say anything anymore. Like, he's, I think, a great example of social media on a large scale makes your life worse. He's the richest guy in the fucking world, you know? Just go into your office and work on your passions and go to Mars and stay the fuck off social media. You know, it only makes his life worse. And if it's only going to make his life worse, what's it going to do for your life?
Like, if social media can make the richest guy in the world
make his life inarguably worse,
an angry edgelord,
good God,
what does it do to the rest of us?
Good God. I just like, if anyone's listened to podcasts in the past, I was a huge fan of Tesla. I was an early adopter for Tesla. And it's just been like, I feel like my 2023 has been dragged out over the last decade of just this like steady fucking decline, you know? And then I see something cool. Like, I saw this incredible video of the SpaceX booster rockets coming and landing back down the stage one when they decouple and then they land back on Earth. It looked like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, and it's cool. It's like, can you just
focus on the cool shit?
Can you just do that? But then they're probably saying, no, please don't focus on that because you're just going to get in the way at this point.
Right, they're like, no, look the other way.
Anyway, enough about Elon Musk, for God's sake.
Okay, let's talk about Microsoft. We already talked about a little bit with the OpenAI safe, but remember, they also had another thing this year. They acquired Activision.
Yes.
And that was like a whole year. That was a saga over the course of the year.
Yeah, some of these things like span, it feels like 5 years, but yeah, that was this year.
So the big things were, I think the FTC complained, and then it was very odd. The EU cleared the acquisition, China cleared the acquisition, the UK said nah.
Try to punch above their weight there, I think.
Well, I was curious to see, because could they? We don't really know how that would have worked had they ultimately said no. I think what Microsoft did to appease the CMA was they licensed their cloud stuff to Ubisoft for like 10 years or something. So excellent work to the UK for getting Microsoft to bump up the French company.
So to put it in perspective, like we see the EU flexing their market strength a lot and like forcing Apple to go to USB-C.
Another thing for this year.
Incredible. So happy about that. The 67 million people in the UK, it's a decent size market. It's a good size market. Doesn't really compare to the EU market or the Europe market. 747 million people in Europe. If the UK tries to block something, it's not going to have the weight of the EU doing it. The EU can force those things.
And I don't think the UK is accustomed yet to being what is ultimately a small fish in the big pond.
To where even like Biden said later this year, he said, hey, EU, stop targeting our companies.
I remember that.
It's like, well, maybe don't have them make global technologies that no one else can control that affect people's quality of life. Maybe just think about it. Just think about it. That's all. Yeah, mind if I jump into my stuff? Because we're already at 21 minutes.
No, we got to go quick.
This is an epic episode. I'll go really quickly through mine. Starting off, one of my favorite stories from the year was the congresswoman who got felt up. I can't even say it. I want to say it. I can't. She got felt up in the crowded theater on her date. I just like, I mean, I know we don't talk about politics and this is a politician, but man, it was it was such a funny story. I don't know. It's like, I know where we are in the world today. It's like, you know, we're in a very big like shame cycle where shame's a big thing that people use a lot, but I don't think we want to beat all of the wildness out of ourselves, right? And I listen, there's going to be people get really upset because they know this person's politics and laughing about it or whatever, hypocrisy or whatever. It's just saying independently, a congressperson is getting felt up in the theater. It was just a funny story to me, and it stuck with me. My other story is not quite political nature. I love the fact that Taylor Swift got Time Magazine's Person of the Year, and I love it for one simple fact. I love it because in the late 30s, Time Magazine's Man of the Year at the time, was given to an up-and-coming young politician named Adolf Hitler. So I love now that it is accurate to say Adolf Hitler, ... Taylor Swift.
Those ... do a lot of heavy lifting.
Right. Like you could say Hitler rose to power and invaded Poland. Yada, yada, yada. Taylor Swift. I love that. And look, I know that I'm running the risk of angering Swifties. I'm one of them.
Look, you are a Swiftie.
I am a Swiftie. I listen to 1989 on repeat. I don't know so much of the new stuff, but goddamn, I love 1989. Swifties, I get you. I'm not trying to upset you. Really, I'm definitely not trying to upset you. Don't focus on me. I don't know if you heard our South Korea story yesterday, but the K-pop bands, they're going down to like one dude per band in the next generation. That's all they can sustain. So now's your time to strike. Rally your forces, crush them. Press your advantage while you got it. Don't focus on a podcaster, for God's sake. My last story that I loved for year in review 2023 is a little bit more serious.
Okay, I'll put on my serious face.
This is on a very serious episode of Morning Somewhere. This is something I think about on a regular basis. There was a story that came out this year that in Baltimore, 23 schools in the Baltimore area had 0 students proficient in mathematics. That means no student at the 23 schools tested at their grade level for mathematics at the state standard level, which we all know those state levels, if you're outside the U.S., those are not high bars. They're really not high bars.
I mean, I graduated.
That's a horrifying statistic. You just think about it. 23 schools worth of kids. There wasn't a kid who got lucky at that. Which seems almost statistically unlikely. Mathematically, it seems impossible, right? How did one kid not get lucky in all these 23 schools? And that's just the 23 schools where they can identify. I think it was something like 7% of the total school was the only people that passed of all the schools across all the measurements in the entire district, or however they have. We have districts in Texas, so that's the word I want to use. Well, so there were 23 in which 0 students tested proficient in math, and there were an additional 20 schools in the district that had no more than 2 students proficient in math. That's wild. So that's 7% of 3rd through 8th graders met grade level expectations in math. In math in 2022. I don't think that any kid in those schools is going to listen to this podcast, but you just want to go to those kids and go, look, the adults in your life are failing you. And I don't say that lightly. My parents were both public high school teachers in Alief, Texas, to a lot of at-risk and lower middle class kids. I really don't say that lightly, but it's just like, that's the failure of an entire system. And we're all a part of it, right? And it's like, as you go further out from those kids, that responsibility does decrease as you go out from it, but you just want to like find a way to reach those kids and say, I know mathematics seems lame or whatever, or hard, and you have a lot of other things going on in life, but mathematics is the thing that can set you free. And it's so hard for people to understand, especially young people. One of the toughest things to get through to them is if you understand basic mathematics and time and compounding interest, like you were making a joke about earlier. It's incredible the things that unlocks in your life. It's so sad to me to not give those kids those tools that they can use to make those choices. And yes, everybody's individual circumstances of their life are different, and everyone will have different options based on their ability and their situation and their home life and their anxiety levels and their health levels and opportunities. But understanding mathematics, I think, is a way that you can use to make decisions and plan for your life when you're accounting for all those other things as well. And it just makes me really, really, really sad that they're not being taught that. And I was going to follow up with girl math after that so that I could end on a light note, but I don't think there's a light way to come out of that. It's something that I think about on an almost daily basis. And I don't know why, out of everything that's going on in the world, I don't know why these 23 schools in Baltimore stuck with me, but they did. All right, Ash, I hated to end on a somber note, but 2023, I think in general, when you and I were talking about it, it feels a little bit like a placeholder year. I was talking to Lamington about this in one of the social media posts. Do you feel that way? Like 2023, like 2020 and 21 were super eventful?
Well, we are coming off of a couple hyper eventful, even in a way that they were hyper uneventful years. You know, we're coming off pandemics and lockdowns and learning to be in a world again and a work from home movement. And yeah, this feels like next year's going to be hyper eventful. This one feels like it's waiting. Yeah,
it seems like even like the AI stuff that was taking place this year, it was all like setting up for next year. Everything in like the geopolitical sphere is setting up for next year in 2024. 2024 is going to be a wild year. I really feel. Don't you feel that way about 2024?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a hectic one.
I think it's going to be a hectic one as well. And I hope everybody's buckled up and ready for it. You know, we'll be here chatting with you Monday through Friday. Talking you through it. We're working our way through it too, hopefully. You know, we'll be here for that. I do want to say, if I may, I'd like to talk for a second about this last 3 days. We made a joke about it at the beginning, but it has been a really, really crazy 3 days. And I just wanted to pause for a moment and say thank you to everybody, like hitting number 2 yesterday on Spotify. I couldn't help but be nostalgic, and I hope you'll indulge me a little bit on story time here. But this takes me all the way back to when I first started Red versus Blue, which was the first thing I ever made that people know about that hit. I spent my first decade, you know, of adulthood in my 20s, just working on different stuff and trying to make different projects. And then had this idea for a show, put a camera and a microphone in front of my friends and had them record some lines, and then went home and animated for a weekend and then uploaded this thing. And it was crazy. Uploaded it, had hopes and expectations, and all of that was surpassed within the first 2 weeks because 3,000 people watched the first episode, 250,000 people watched the second episode, and by the end of the month, we were at 1 million views a week on a web show, like one of the first web series ever. And it was crazy. And that whole thing grew into a whole bigger thing. And we did a ton of things in that company that dwarfed all those little milestones at the beginning. But that feeling at the beginning when things were taking off is a time I always remember. I always said it wasn't like an overnight success, but it was the closest thing I was going to ever experience to that, because it was an overnight success that was actually a month long, and it was 10 years in the making. But I always knew I was never going to experience anything like that ever again. But here we are. Like, that's what this week has been. It's been 3 days. It just feels like that same thing. And a lot of people have expressed nostalgia for, you know, listening to us on a podcast again. I want to know share my experience with you. I'm feeling that same nostalgia, that going back to that time, being alone in that bedroom and feeling energized and dwarfed and exposed and excited and anxious and everything. And I never thought I would get to feel that again. And here we are, you know, and I don't know where we go from here, but here we are. And I have nothing but gratitude. And I want to say thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.